From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt. Our colleague Noel is adventuring still,
but will return soon. They call me Ben. We're joined, as always, with our super producer, Dylan the Tennessee Pal Fagan. Most importantly, you are you. You are here. That makes this, the stuff they don't want you to know, a bit of a special case. Fellow conspiracy realists, this is part 2 of a 2-part series on the troubled border of Myanmar. And honestly, Matt, troubled is vastly understating the case.
Yeah. There's so many issues here that we've been going over thus far, and we're about to get into a lot more of them. And I'm just looking at some of the news reporting just over this year since April with the Civil War stuff that's been going on, and then connecting it to the powerful forces that are able to operate, some of the military forces as well as some of the resistance forces that are out there that are battling each other all across Myanmar, especially near the borders. And a lot of that money that's funding this stuff is coming from the crime.
100%. We also know that people who are being enslaved in these certain camps that we're going to talk about, we know they're coming from around the world. This is an international conspiracy. So please, please, please tune into episode 1 of this series, the first part, to get a handle on what we're talking about. And now, without further ado, part 2 of the troubled border of Myanmar.
Can we talk about the somewhat strange border that India has with Myanmar? Because Bangladesh is like, I don't know, tucked in between this tiny little piece of land that sends India around the top of Bangladesh and around to the side, and then wraps around where it actually borders with Myanmar. And it's so interesting. And I was wrong. When I looked at it initially, I thought that Bangladesh actually had this very large border with Myanmar, but no, that's actually India.
Yeah.
It just wraps around.
It's like 1,000 miles.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's huge, and because it's huge, again, it's porous, and the ethnic groups residing there live on either side of the border. Previously on India, the Modi administration had said, okay, we're going to give you free movement. We understand that everybody living in these villages, you have close-knit kinship. You have more in common with yourselves than you have with us running India's government. So, free movement. Anyone on either side of the border here, if you live here, you can go 10 miles into the other country. You don't need a visa because it's, you're probably going to work. You're probably going to go visit your mom or something. Just pass through, say hey to Robert, and go on your merry way. But then, with the Civil War, Myanmar began printing refugees, flooding into India at a rate the rural areas simply couldn't take. I mean, imagine if folks, tell us where you live and give us your social security number, but tell us where you live and imagine your town cut in half. If Atlanta all of a sudden was part U.S. and then part a different country, A, what country would it be? And C, who would be running to which side? Because if it's a better country than the U.S., we're all going to go. If someone's like, hey, south of I-20 is now Switzerland, and that happens in 10 days. What do you think would happen? You know what I mean? Anybody who ends up south of 20, inside 285, congratulations, you are now a Swiss citizen.
Whoa.
I would do it.
Yeah, do you think we can make that happen?
I
want to go there.
I'm South Swiss, is what we call ourselves. He says South Swiss. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know. It's a question. And when things were going so horribly awry in Myanmar, a lot of these people were asking themselves the same question. They went over to India, or they were not allowed to go to India because the government decided to build a wall.
They built that wall, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They ended the free movement program. They built a wall. They cited national security concerns because of the Civil War, which makes sense.
They're real. Those are real concerns.
Those are valid, but they're not necessarily exclusive. You can have real concerns and ulterior motives as well. You know, like, oh, never mind. I don't know if I want to say it. Like, you know how, like, yes, a cop might have to pull somebody over for speeding, but it also helps them with their quota.
Yes.
So those are two valid. There's valid. You know, we'll see if we keep that one.
I get it. I get what you're saying.
And not all law enforcement needs a quota, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking through conceptually there. It's sticky, right? Because locals in this northeastern part of India in particular, they say there's an ulterior motive. They say, you know what? Life here is rough in Northeast India. And so what we think is happening is the government is ignoring the real problem and blaming migrants and refugees as a convenient deflection away from addressing other more serious and substantive problems.
Weird. Gosh, that feels...
Some deja vu, right?
Yeah, something resonating with me there.
Oh, look at Dylan's nod.
I can't put my finger on it, but it sounds familiar.
I wish I brought my magic 8-ball. Which is cocaine.
Signs point to...
I've never tried it. I think I would age out of that experience. But
you don't mean either. And I think that's really good. Cheers to us.
I think so. For being so unpopular in college.
Yeah. Is that what it was?
I don't know. I just think it was never the demographic.
Yes, all of us.
Yay. Oh, gosh. We're such Dudley do-rights. But we know that people can be opportunistic with this kind of stuff. And right now, 80,000 refugees and asylum seekers from Myanmar live in India. Of those 80,000, the vast majority came over since the 2021 coup.
Yep.
So there are similar instances in Thailand and, of course, Laos. Just recently, a Myanmar national was brutally beaten to death in Thailand. And there's a flood of methamphetamine, as you know, coming through that area. We see the civil wars bring refugees, death, and chaos. And other countries try to do the right. This is really important, folks. Other countries try to do the right thing in assisting refugees, but they are under no real legal compulsion to do so. That's why when, speaking of deja vu, you see a situation with a lot of potential refugees, at least as indicated by their Google searches. Every country you want to apply to does not have to take you. It is their decision.
Yeah. So just like make yourself an amazing candidate on paper.
Yes. Yeah. Take all the tricks you learned from social media and just fake it till you make it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's true. They do not have to do that, but being, it's like the right thing to do, but bringing in a bunch of new people that need, the resources that you have on offer as a country in a region. It is a strain on everything when you bring in 50,000 people or more.
Yeah, yeah. Pretty much anywhere, bringing in that many people.
But again, it's the right thing to do. There's no legal thing on, a country's neck saying you have to do this, but it is probably the right thing to do.
Yeah, and the phrase you'll hear often by different countries is eligible for refugee status. You have to apply for this position. We will consider whether the way they get you, but this is true. The way that you calculate this stuff as a country is you say, of course we accept refugees. We're the good guys. Yeah. This is the right thing to do, and we do that as long as someone is eligible for refugee status. You know what I mean? Just answer a few questions first. And don't be this, because we hate those guys.
Yeah. It's really specific questions about Pokemon, like a specific Pokemon and your preferences and that kind of thing. And then they're like, ooh, I don't know, this is a Jigglypuff guy. I don't like that. That guy's way too much into Vulpix.
It's bizarre metaphors, right? Like the weird esoteric part of the SAT or the ACT. And then there's also stuff where you can clearly tell they're not over, the country as a whole is not over its ex-girlfriend. Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
And they're like, okay, so race, religion, nationality, that checks out. You are from a persecuted religious minority. Do you know Deborah?
I do.
Do you know Karen?
Who?
All right, let him in. But you're the last one for today, buddy.
Karen, they don't even know that I know you. I just said no.
Jason, I mean, it does seem that arbitrary, right? We're having a little bit of levity to it, but it is a serious problem. And because of all this mix of stuff, right? The surge in refugees, the willful ignorance of the wider world, and the strange moves at the border of Myanmar with all these other countries. Because of that, we see chaos and war, the breakdown of rule of law, which means we see crime. Crime is so hot in Myanmar right now.
Woo, buddy. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I was channeling my mama told me there for a second. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah, shout out Langston David. Yeah.
Oh, man, it's so funny. Yeah, and we're talking everything. And one of the biggest issues here is that it's not like it's Myanmar-based crime syndicates. Often. Sometimes it is, but not always.
Right.
Often it's a cartel that just moves into the territory like we were talking about because they can get away with it a little easier.
Yes. Yeah. We're going to see why, too, because they might function in partnership with the local warlord or military group or secessionist group or guerrilla group. I'm naming all the groups.
You're going to get paid if you let us operate right here. You're going to get your cut. Just let us make our money.
Exactly. Migrants from around the region, a lot of other countries like from Thailand, from the Philippines, from Sri Lanka, from India, from Bangladesh. Picture a country that is not China in that region. Someone there has been taken in with a very strange, specific form of human trafficking. All the other regular evil forms of human trafficking are real, are true, and do continue there. But a lot of folks are being kidnapped by these foreign domestic criminal partnerships, and they're being forced to scam targets in Europe and North America online from compounds that are built and run for this purpose by triads, by Chinese organized crime. And we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of people. We don't know how many.
Exactly. And we're talking about those weird, seemingly normal-looking apartment complexes where some of this stuff is taking place, where people just live there and they are forced to do this kind of work.
Yeah, it's similar to how slavery happens in the Middle East. People from afar, right, are lured in with these promises of a high-paying job. You know, this is your chance to get out of a really tough environment in your town, you know, in Kenya or in the Philippines or Malaysia. You can provide for your family, just work with us for a few years, and then sadly, the dream is often pitched as, and then you can go back to your home country and you'll have the capital to start your own business, which is a life-changing thing. But when they get there, if they have a visa or a passport, it is taken from them, at least in the Middle East. And if they just have a job offer in this area of the world, in Southeast Asia, then they don't have a legal protection. They're smuggled across the border, like to the point where you get across a river somewhere and you just got your suitcase, and then the person who's supposed to be helping you says, all right, run to the van. There's no customs. And customs can be a pain in the ass, but if you've ever had to cross a place without it, you're going to miss it.
That's weird.
You're going to miss that at least one person is checking in on you in a way that is not run to the van.
Well, yeah, because well, if they're checking me, they must be checking everybody, and there's a sense of safety perhaps that comes with that. Like,
Sure.
somebody's got an eye on all of us that are coming through.
Someone has decided there are rules to this road.
That's it.
You know what I mean? It's not a free-for-all. But yeah, these groups often don't have any rule of law. They're outside the reach of law enforcement. The media is not allowed. Civil society, by which we mean nonprofits and stuff, they're not allowed. None of this. None of that Doctors Without Borders fancy stuff. It's just run to the van.
God,
or we'll kill you. There was a guy, Jason Tower, for USIP, which is the United States Institute of Peace. My favorite name.
I read some stuff from them, and I went, we've talked about these names.
Yeah. So, but they have a great point here. They say this is the United Nations of scamming in Myanmar. Scammers are trafficked in as forced labor from all these different countries. And we read this thing for the Pulitzer Center by these two awesome Pulitzer grantees and journalists, or three, Alistair McReady, Allegra Mendelsohn, and Hein Tar. And these folks tell just harrowing stories of firsthand experiences from people who have been trafficked as part of these scam slave farms.
Yeah. And a lot of that porous Thailand, Myanmar border, well, one of the major hubs there is that town Myawaddy, one of the really important ones, because that's one of the ones that militaries are constantly coming in and out of, trying to gain control of.
Right, because it's a profit center.
Exactly.
We're going to pause here for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back.
And we're back.
We don't know how many people have been victimized by this. We simply don't. A lot of these folks exist off the grid. They're the kind of people the world ignores. But we have some indicators, some data indicators that are terrifying. We know that pretty much everybody who is attempting to prevent human trafficking in this part of the world, they have all clocked a huge rise in trafficking situations. So it's a tip of the iceberg situation. At least that's how Geraldine Ansart puts it.
Well, that makes a ton of sense, because you got to imagine only a tiny percentage of human trafficking victims are ever able to escape enough to raise a flag. Right?
Yeah.
And to like seek help in any form, or, you know, just literally in any way.
And many don't have any of that kind of social safety net to begin with.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, and I'm talking even getting to a car to get down the road far enough to actually get help from someone or an emergency service. Like if you're in one of these situations, you are potentially just stuck there.
And it sounds very, very easy, damnably easy to say, well, if it were me in that situation, I would figure something out. I would, I am straight up MacGyver and Jason Bourne all in one. I'm a sober James Bond. I'm James Bond if he wasn't drunk. That is not true. No. That is not what's going to happen. That is cinema that is perhaps fooling us because they're works of fiction. Your life is tightly controlled. You're beaten. They beat the crap out of you every day. They control you through fear. They control you through hunger. They may get you hooked on drugs, which is another, from our episode about how you would control someone with an asset with ESP.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of the best ways, right?
Well, and especially when we're talking about crackdowns on borders, the way we were mentioning the border with India.
Yeah.
If they're controlling your passport and you are physically able to get to a border crossing and you don't have a passport,
right,
maybe someone, takes mercy on you and says, okay, we'll at least consider your status or
You're
something.
You're an asylum seeker or something. Yeah.
But it's also likely that you aren't given that benefit of the doubt if you just show up there.
Yeah. And that's why, look, also this industry is worth billions of dollars.
Yeah.
Just online scamming people. It's not going to slow down. The rule of law isn't functioning and the money is too good. So much so that in some of these compounds or some of these towns, like you mentioned, Matt, the conflicting groups aren't fighting for their ideology. They're fighting for control of the moneymaker, right, of that profit center. And the places have names like Family Park. That Family Park alone has 2,000 workers estimated in this situation, or the KK Park Zone, which is huge. And this is where our Pulitzer journalists spend a lot of time exploring the story. You work 12 to 14-hour shifts, part of a team, and your whole job is to target social media users and engage them in scams. You have a quota. And your quota, in at least a couple of cases, was $25,000 per day.
Holy crap.
How do you scam people to that level?
That's so many people.
Or it's one person with a lot of money. You know what? You find one lonely guy.
Yeah, one lonely guy, or a small group of just lonely humans.
Mm-hmm.
That happen to have that kind of money or have good enough credit to take out a line or something.
It's almost like the free-to-play apps where, the entire calculus of building those apps is to engage in cycles of addictive behavior, right? And then know that, sure, 90% of people are just going to put it down or they'll never play past the free part.
Yeah.
10% or 9% will play a little, and then your 1%, the so-called whale, is going to just open their wallet because they need more. I don't know. What's the thing you get? They need more gold toboggans or whatever they call their currency in this game. You know
Money for their cat's health. Right. Oh, wait, what? That's a whole different thing. Okay.
They've got to crush their candies, right?
Yeah.
That sounds like a weird euphemism. But yes. So they have to, like you're saying, man, they either get a collection of people who are paying a little into a scam or got a bit before they can extricate themselves. And then they want to get the whales. And they do this not because they're bad people, but because they have physical consequences, possibly fatal consequences if they don't play the game. This would have been so baffling to law enforcement of decades past.
Yeah. I'm trying to imagine other versions of organized crime, at least depictions that I've seen in fiction or something I've read about, functioning inside the U.S. where there's that level of a quota that you've got of money to make.
Ooh, I got one. I got a pitch. Call in telephone sex lines.
Okay.
You could do the same kind of things.
You have to be on the phone providing services for X number of, hours a day or minutes a day or something. And if you don't, then your pay gets docked or something. Yeah, I could see that.
Or you could get beaten up because maybe you are in a situation where there is a pimp controlling you. And that's one of the side gigs you're required to do. Like when some people, sex workers, were forced into doing webcam shows.
Yes.
So that could totally happen with telephone lines.
Yep. No, yeah, I can totally see that. You can see that in that same way. Even just, I think about human trafficking mostly when it comes to that stuff. I don't think about like the drug trade. You have to sell X number of bags or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know.
The drug game has done so much for the metric system in the United States, and I feel like we need to brag about that more often.
That's right.
Also, we talked about this, right? Did I tell you the McGruff guy got arrested?
Scruff?
Ruff McGruff, the drug dog?
Scruff McGruff, right?
Is it Scruff McGruff?
Chicago, Illinois, 60652.
Okay, well, you guys are sellouts. I was never on a first-name basis with him.
That's right.
Okay, that's a good note. That's Dylan's my accountability buddy. So the McGruff guy, got arrested the actor playing McGruff, because it's not a real anthropomorphic dog. The actor playing McGruff got arrested for a massive amount of cannabis.
Oh,
he got 16 years for 1,000 pot plants. And 27 weapons, including his grenade launcher.
Oh, dude.
You really didn't talk about this?
Maybe we did, but I don't think we got into the specifics.
It was back in 2014.
Yeah. Even Scruff is like, hey, kids, don't worry. Weed's not a drug anymore.
Hey, grenade launchers are cool.
Yeah.
So that's McGruff the crime dog. And how do we get there? Oh, yeah, because we're talking about these online scams.
Yes.
So one of the scams is pretty much kind of like a honeypot thing, but the digital version. And they call it the pig butchering scam. They pose as a love interest to entice, the rube or the mark into a fraudulent investment scheme. And that works.
Yeah.
Because people are lonely. We always hear it's even to now it's the point where it's a kind of sad stand-up comedy trope, right? The mail order bride. I found love online half a world away, and she'll get to me, or he'll get to me just as soon as we sort out a few things, and I'm going to help pay for them.
Yeah, like customs things that I need in order to get out of the country to you, to finally make it to you.
Also, will you help my family?
Yeah. Well, and if you're a good person and you actually care about this other person that is a fiction on the other end of the line.
Who gets you? Who is the first person who really listened to your bullshit?
Well, who will spend time with you, right?
Right.
And pay attention to you. It's just that is an insidious and
And it works, and it just evolves with technology. You know what I mean? Because before there were computers, people were doing that with letters in the post,
Yeah.
Dearest Samantha, how I yearn to touch your heavenly flesh in person, your angelic voice to soothe me to sleep. Yet the war has been rough in my country. And the Postmaster General says I shall be able to send no more letters unless I pay the Duke the blood ransom.
Yes, of $792 exactly. Check, please.
I was hoping you were going to say shillings. Doubloons.
You're going to require 2 forms of identification, a social security card if you've got it.
Yeah, blood type. List of your fears would be nice. So this is, we're making light of it, but it is a real brutal and dangerous thing. And I think this also gives an opportunity to exercise some empathy, right? Because I've fallen for it too. The allure of watching, a scammer gets pwned, right? I tricked this scammer into doing this silly thing.
I love watching scammers get pwned.
I did too, but more and more I'm thinking, what if these folks are not there consensually? What if they're forced to do this?
Oh, okay, I get what you're saying.
So now am I making fun of someone that
you.
is going to get the snot beat out of them no matter what?
Oh,
that's a very inhumane thing to do.
Yeah, that is true. The ones I like that I've seen before is one particular British dude, I think, that will get into the systems. Like, there's so many cameras.
And shows the camera of the person at the call center.
Oh, yeah, the entire call center, right?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And often what he'll do is focus on the manager, like identifying the manager and getting information on the manager and just going after that one person via, through whoever he's talking to.
Which makes more sense.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. But even then, that manager might be caught up in the same thing.
And I still like seeing scammers who are consensually scamming as a lifestyle. Sort of like the 419 boys, the 419 scammers, Nigeria. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's consensual. It's sort of even a glorification of a lifestyle. And I love seeing the pranks where, for instance, the person who's supposed to be being scammed keeps making increased requests to, like, I'd love to, can you help me out so that I know it's you? Can you get Harry Potter tattooed on you? Just so I can verify this.
If you don't mind.
If you don't mind. So this.
Oh, wait, there's one more type that you've got to go watch if you can right now. And it's a series. Oh, man, I don't have the specific names, but it is. There's at least one woman who will just frustrate the ever-living crap out of scammers by keeping them on the phone and confused for an elongated period of time. I'm sorry, it makes me happy.
And the word for this online is called scam baiting. Mm-hmm. So you can check out things like 419eater.com.
Ooh.
Anyway, just remember, we're bringing this up because in these cases, these folks who are doing this, while it is a crime, they are forced to do it. They are enslaved to do it. And this It's horrifying to read the examples of people who said, yeah, I had to fake a relationship with someone online and take money they probably didn't have because I need to make 25 grand a day. Some of the people who are telling these stories also, remove their clothing and show the scars that they got from being beaten after not meeting quotas.
Gosh.
And
it really sucks because if there was no money in it, it wouldn't be happening. And if we could find a way to prevent or educate there's some way to get it to at least fall below profitable levels, right? There are ways to do that. There's got to be.
To de-incentivize, The problem is it seems like a lot of people in control don't want it to stop. I'll just say that. This takes us to Shui Coco. How do we get to this situation,
Yeah, Shui Coco is another one that we mentioned in that listener mail episode, just like KK Park. It's just it's another one of these locations that is doing a very similar thing, but they've upped their game. Mm-hmm. Not only are they just keeping people, in one location attempting to run these scams, this place, Shui Coco, is also a casino, or casinos are there, hotels for other people to come in and either function temporarily or to bring people in as like a tourist area of crime.
Party spots.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also the non-consensual home to over 20,000 scam slaves.
Wow. With that, we're going to take a quick break, hear a word from our sponsors, and return for more.
And we've returned to Myanmar. Here's what happened. Without getting too into the weeds on the development here, look, Shui Coco is the most prominent example of a larger swath of what are called special economic zones. They're in Laos, they're in Cambodia, they're in Myanmar. Some are ostensibly related to the Silk Road 2.0, the Belt and Road Initiative that we talked about in the past. But now pretty much all of them are crime hubs. And it's because back in the day, Chinese triads had a plan, and they work hand in hand with the Chinese government and other governments. And they said, we got to get in on this special economic zone stuff. We're going to launder our money to develop these areas. We've got permission from the governments that say, hey, it's legal to own a casino here. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to get all those tourists, all those Chinese tourists are going to come in and visit. They're going to play at our casino and they're going to lose because that's how casinos work. And then, if we need another side hustle, then we'll do that. But guys, we're printing money off these rubes.
It's like Disney Springs, but for organized crime.
Yes. Yeah, that's a very good way to put it. In Cambodia alone, these crime networks have taken in 50 to 100,000 people. In Myanmar, the number could be 2 times higher, double, could be treble, could be 3 times higher. We don't know because when the criminals started doing this as part of the casino grift, which, if you've been to Vegas, folks, you've seen how that game works.
You've at least watched Showtime at some point in your life.
Right. You've seen Casino.
Yes.
Not the most creative name for a movie, but,
It's an amazing film.
It is an amazing film, and the title is accurate. So these guys didn't know the pandemic was coming. That's where stuff messed up. They wanted to have online gambling operations, and then they wanted to have in-person casinos. This was something we talked about also previously with Thailand's serial killer.
What?
Remember the female serial killer?
Yes.
Who was killing people for gambling, online gambling? Part of that was run through Chinese triads.
Holy Lord.
So the story, there's some red string here.
That's the poisoner?
Yeah. She was poisoning pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
and she was sleeping with law enforcement.
Yeah, and spending
married to him, and then ex-married to him, but still sleeping with him.
Yeah, and it was some ungodly amount of money that was spent every day on online.
Yeah, exactly. It was a very dangerous situation. That person had a very tragic story. Please check out our episode on it, but gird thyself. So these Chinese triad groups, very good at crime, not great at predicting the COVID pandemic. Because COVID hit, and all of a sudden, they don't have their Chinese tourist base.
Yeah.
They don't have their labor force either, because they were using, people associated with the triad.
So what do? Just pack up and call it a day? Like, well, we tried.
Oh, yeah, they don't try. They triad. So, all right. Thank you for the rim shot, Dylan. So around 2021, something else happened. Amid the pandemic, the government of China launched this huge campaign that might give a little bit of deja vu to some of our listeners here in the States and other parts of the world. The government reached out to Chinese nationals who were living all around South Asia and all these different countries and forced them to return to China, to return to Chinese soil by hook or by crook. The penalties were super harsh. So now the criminals have lost their tourist base, they've lost their labor base, and they start thinking and they start brainstorming until an evil light bulb pops in their head and they say, hey, why don't we just lie to people about the kind of job we'll give them? Why don't we make sure they're here illegally so they don't have any rights? And then why don't we just kill them if they don't do what we want them to do? And that's exactly what happened.
Yes, that is exactly what happened. It's horrific that that's all going on while there's still a civil war raging, while there's also the fear. I'm imagining being an individual living anywhere near one of these, borders, right?
Yeah.
And just the fear and uncertainty and struggle, all of it just going on every day. Just, I don't know, dealing with this extra layer, this extra other thing. It's almost like you can see why the world kind of turns away a little bit because there's so much going on.
Yeah. And it's not a simple story.
Yeah.
And especially here in the West, we've been taught to prioritize simple stories. Tell me this problem in 5 minutes. Tell me this problem in 3 minutes, so I have 2 minutes to hear the story about that funny dog running for mayor.
It helps so much when that dog runs for mayor. It just makes us all feel better.
It's just, gosh, I've got a couple of friends who are reporters, or I've got one friend in particular here in Atlanta who is a anchor and field reporter.
Yeah.
And those segues, man, those transitions are tough. I feel bad for people every time. You turn on the news at the wrong moment.
Yeah.
And you can see the really painful, they're like 45,000 dead, roughly 1/3 of the hands have been found at this point. Now, next up, pho in a burrito. We'll talk live with the inventor of the pho-rito.
Ben Bolin.
No, somebody beat it.
Oh, yeah.
I texted you that, right?
You're right.
It was a good idea. It
Yeah.
just means it was a good idea. But this is, again, it's a terrifying mix of ingredients. It's an evil soup. It's simmering. It's growing to a boil even tonight. And it will probably continue to grow in step with the chaos. I mean, Matt, you and I have researched a lot of this separately, too. What do you think? Is it too cynical to say this appears set to continue?
It does seem like it's going to continue. I've been into The Diplomat, which is one of the sources you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, The Diplomat's great.
If they've got some pretty dire stories coming out of Myanmar right now about other factors that are happening as well. If we think about some of the extreme weather that the world, not just, the U.S., not just other like the Caribbean, but that's, maybe some of the most stuff we see here is the most top of mind. But the world is experiencing weather disasters right now en masse. And when you've got all these other unrest situations happening in your country like Myanmar is experiencing, then a pretty simple flooding becomes
a humanitarian crisis.
Exactly. Exponentially worse than it would have been if, there was some stability going on. And they were just writing about unprecedented disaster there in The Diplomat as, military fighting drags on. And that was from November 8th of this year.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it's still continuing. We want to be able to say everything will be warm and fuzzy and there's a brighter future ahead. And maybe part of that is true. But how far away is that future now? You know, we look, the people, again, we always have to say this, the people living in Myanmar obviously want the violence to end.
Yeah.
International groups want to get in there and help people. The media wants to share these stories. But at this point, it's also fair to ask, what about the people at the top? Not just the criminal organizations, but the governments that clearly support them. Do they want this to end? Why aren't they stopping it?
Why don't you write into us and tell us what you think? You can call us. You can find us on social media. You can email us. Here is how to get in touch. First, on social media, check out Conspiracy Stuff. That's our handle most places. On Instagram and TikTok, we are Conspiracy Stuff Show. We also have a phone number.
That's right. The rumors are true. You can contact us directly through a telephonic device of your choice, as long as it's a telephone. The number, 1-833-STDWYTK. You'll hear a familiar voice and then a beep like so, beep. And when that happens, you're off to the races. You got 3 minutes. They are yours. Go ham, go nuts, go bananas, go one other type of food that's used as a reference point. We've got a couple rules of the road for this, and we'd sure appreciate it if you could try to do the following.
Give yourself a cool nickname, and in the message, let us know if we can use your name and message on the air. If you've got more to say than can fit in a voicemail, and you don't like social media, but you still want to chat with us, you want to give us your opinion, or, tell us another story we should cover, why not instead send us a good old-fashioned email? We are
the entities that read every piece of correspondence we receive. Be well aware, yet unafraid. Sometimes the void writes back. Join us here in the dark. Conspiracy at iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.